The grand chandelier bathed the ballroom in golden light, casting shimmering reflections across polished marble floors. Laughter and the clinking of champagne glasses filled the air, but she barely heard any of it. Her entrance was slow, deliberate, each step echoing with purpose. Heads turned, whispers spread like wildfire. Dressed in midnight silk, she was a vision of elegance and power. Once she had stood here, hopelessly in love, naive enough to believe in forever. But tonight wasn't about love. Tonight was about reckoning. Her heart was steady, her purpose clear. He hadn't noticed her yet, but soon he would. The scent of jasmine and expensive cologne lingered in the air, mixing with the warm aroma of champagne and fresh roses. Waiters weaved between clusters of high-profile guests, offering golden trays of hors d'oeuvres. The city's elite gathered here. Powerful men, influential women, all draped in wealth and status. It was the same event he had once brought her to years ago when she had believed in his promises. Now, she stood among them, not as the woman he abandoned, but as the woman who would ruin him. He had written this story. She was here to change the ending. A hush fell over certain corners of the room as her presence registered. Gasps were muffled behind champagne flutes. Stolen glances exchanged like scandalous secrets. They remembered her. How could they not? The woman who had given everything, only to be tossed aside like an inconvenience. But this time, there was no heartbreak in her eyes, no quiet desperation. She walked with the poise of someone untouchable, unshaken. The past no longer weighed her down. It propelled her forward. And while others watched in awe, she had eyes only for him. He stood unaware, wrapped in the illusion of victory. He looked exactly as she remembered, polished, confident, the image of success. The man she had once loved so deeply, now merely a stranger draped in arrogance. His hand rested on the waist of his fiancée, the woman he had chosen over her. They were the perfect couple in the eyes of the world. She wondered if he still believed that lie, if he truly thought he had won. A bitter smile ghosted her lips. Tonight, the illusion would shatter. Tonight, the truth would burn away every carefully crafted deception. And when the dust settled, he would stand alone. The massive screen at the center of the ballroom loomed above them all, its presence unnoticed amidst the glittering spectacle. But soon, it would be impossible to ignore. A waiter passed by, offering her a glass of wine. She declined with a polite shake of her head. She wanted her mind clear for what was coming. The anticipation curled inside her, not nerves, but satisfaction. This was years in the making, a masterpiece of revenge crafted with patience and precision. Every detail was in place. He had no idea that this night, the night meant to celebrate him, would ruin him. Somewhere across the room, a journalist turned toward her, eyes widening in recognition. He nudged his colleague, whispering something quickly, and just like that, the attention shifted. Conversation softened, eyes flickered toward her, curiosity thick in the air. The weight of their stares didn't unnerve her. She welcomed it. She had been invisible once, pushed into the background of his success story. But now, she was the headline. The moment he turned and saw her standing there, dressed in quiet vengeance, she knew the first crack had formed. His smile faltered. His grip on his fiancée's waist tightened. For a second, just a second, she saw it, the ghost of something in his eyes. Recognition, a flicker of disbelief, as if he couldn't trust what he was seeing. Did he think she had disappeared? That she had faded into the shadows? Too broken to ever rise again? Fool. His fiancée followed his gaze, her expression shifting from amusement to irritation. "Who is that?" she murmured. He didn't answer. He couldn't, because suddenly the weight of everything, the past, the present, and the storm rolling toward him, crashed over him in full force. And she simply stood there, watching him drown. The music seemed to fade, the chatter now nothing more than background static. The air had shifted, and everyone in the room could feel it. She let the silence stretch, knowing it would suffocate him. This wasn't just a reunion. It was an unveiling. "Excuse me for a moment," his fiancée said, brushing off his distracted stare and turning to greet a passing investor. But he didn't move. He was trapped in the pull of a past he had tried to erase. And then, slowly, deliberately, she tilted her head and offered him the smallest, cruelest of smiles. "Checkmate." His mouth parted slightly, but no words came. Maybe he wanted to speak her name, but it caught in his throat like an unwelcome memory. She didn't need to hear it. It meant nothing now. The years she had spent aching, questioning, doubting her worth? Gone. Replaced by this moment, watching him come undone. She stepped forward, not toward him, but toward the center of the room, where all eyes followed. The screen behind her flickered to life, a subtle glow at first, unnoticed by most. But soon, it would command the entire room. The countdown had begun. His ruin was inevitable. She could almost taste it. The shift, the impending chaos. She had orchestrated it with surgical precision, setting the stage for his downfall in the place he felt safest. This gala was meant to be his crowning moment, a celebration of his success. He had no idea that, by the end of the night, the very people applauding him now would be watching his empire crumble. She reached for a champagne flute from a passing waiter, lifting it in silent tribute to the destruction about to unfold. And as he watched her, his breath uneven, she took a slow, victorious sip. The screen behind her remained a quiet hum of electricity, waiting for its moment to speak. The night continued as planned. Waiters refilled glasses, investors discussed profits, and shallow laughter echoed against crystal chandeliers. But beneath it all, a current of unease wove through the room. He still hadn't moved, his gaze fixed on her like she was a specter from a life he had buried. She wondered how long it would take for the weight of realization to sink in, that she wasn't here for him, that she wasn't here to mourn. She was here to make him suffer. The moment stretched, taut like a pulled wire. His fiancée, still blissfully unaware, rejoined him, looping her arm through his. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she teased, pressing closer. He didn't react, couldn't, because for the first time in years, he felt something clawing at him, a feeling he couldn't name, one he had long dismissed. Regret? Fear? It didn't matter. The past he thought he had abandoned stood before him, whole and untouchable. His world, the one he had so carefully built without her, was tilting, and just as he opened his mouth to speak, everything changed. The ballroom's lighting dimmed for a moment, an intentional flicker designed to pull focus. Conversations quieted as heads turned toward the massive screen. A hush spread through the crowd, the kind that came before something monumental. He stiffened, sensing the shift before he fully understood it. His fiancée let out a confused laugh. "What's going on?" she asked, looking toward the organizers. No answer came. Instead, the screen illuminated in perfect clarity, revealing the first glimpse of the truth. It started with text messages, intimate, undeniable, and as each damning word flashed across the screen, the entire room held its breath. At first, there was only silence. then whispers, rippling outward like wildfire. The messages were clear, time-stamped, and unmistakable. His fiancée, speaking in cold calculation, plotting behind his back. He's useful for now. That's all. The words cut deeper than any knife. His grip on his glass tightened, fingers whitening around the stem. His fiancée frowned, then laughed. "What is this?" she scoffed. But the video continued, transitioning seamlessly to secret recordings. The room erupted in shocked gasps as her voice filled the air. "The moment he's no longer an asset, I'll be gone." And then she smirked, right at him. His world crumbled in real time, piece by piece, under the weight of irrefutable proof. The elite guests who once sang his praises now turned their scrutiny on him. Cameras flashed, journalists scrambling to capture his downfall. His fiancée took a slow step back, her amusement fading as realization dawned. She had been exposed, not just to him, but to the world. He whispered, his voice raw, but she only tilted her head, unaffected. "What?" she said, feigning innocence. "Did you think I loved you? Don't be pathetic." The words were delivered like a slap. He swayed on his feet. A murmur of disbelief spread through the guests, some pretending not to look, others openly staring at the unfolding disaster. This was no ordinary scandal. It was annihilation, the kind no reputation could survive. His fiancée, the woman he had abandoned everything for, had never truly wanted him. And now, with her secrets laid bare, she had no reason to keep up the act. "You're finished," she said simply, shaking her head with mock sympathy. Then, as if he was already beneath her notice, she turned and walked away. His fingers twitched at his side, his throat dry. He was drowning. He turned wildly, desperate for an anchor, someone, to prove this wasn't real, that it wasn't happening. And then he saw her, the woman he had discarded, the woman he had betrayed. She stood there, watching it all unfold, an unreadable expression in her eyes. She didn't gloat, didn't need to. Her silence spoke louder than any victory speech. He opened his mouth, but the words died before they could form. For the first time, he saw the undeniable truth. She was beyond him now, stronger, untouchable. The weight of what he had lost settled deep in his chest, suffocating. She took a single step forward, closing the space between them just enough for him to hear the quiet venom in her voice. "You threw me away like I was nothing," she said, soft but sharp enough to cut through the noise. His chest tightened. He started, reaching for something, anything, but she didn't let him finish. "But look who's the one discarded now." Her voice dripped with finality. The words struck like a death sentence. He staggered, hands trembling, the weight of his own choices crushing down on him. He wanted to deny it, wanted to undo it. "Please." The word left his lips before he could stop it. It was foreign, desperate. He had never begged before, not for anything. But now, as she looked at him with nothing but cold amusement, he realized he would say it 1,000 times if it meant turning back time. "Give me a second chance." She actually laughed at that, low, cruel, like the sound of doors closing forever. "A second chance," she echoed, shaking her head. "You already had one lifetime with me, and you threw it away." Then, before he could plead further, she turned her back on him, and there he stood, shattered amidst the wreckage of his own making. The lights around him blurred, the voices blended into distant echoes. No one reached for him, no one defended him. The world that had once revolved around him had moved on. He could only watch as she walked toward someone else. SML, the man waiting patiently for her, the man she now chose. Their hands met, fingers entwining effortlessly. And just like that, she was gone. He didn't chase after her. He couldn't. He was frozen in place, left behind, left haunted, and worst of all, left alone. The room felt colder now, as if the walls had closed in on him. Conversations resumed, but they weren't the same. They carried a new weight. Whispers, speculation, quiet laughter at his expense. He could hear them, feel their judgment pressing down on him, like a suffocating fog. He wanted to move, to run, but his legs wouldn't obey. His fiancée, no, his ex, was gone, her betrayal carved into his soul. And her? She was walking away too, without hesitation. It was unbearable, the realization that he had truly lost her, not just in this lifetime, but in every possible way. The cameras still flashed, capturing his downfall in real time. He had once loved their attention, craved it. Now, every click felt like a bullet to his pride. He forced himself to look at her one last time, hoping, praying that she might turn back, even for a second, that she might hesitate, reconsider. But she didn't. Her back remained straight, her confidence unwavering. She never looked over her shoulder, not once. And with every step she took away from him, something inside him withered. This wasn't just a loss. It was an execution. And she had delivered the final blow herself. His heart pounded against his ribs, but it wasn't from anger. It was fear. The kind that came when you realized you had destroyed something irreplaceable. He had been foolish enough to believe she would always be there, waiting. That no matter how many times he turned his back on her, she would still reach for him. But he was wrong. She had changed. No, she had evolved. He had left her shattered years ago, and she had rebuilt herself into something stronger, something untouchable. And now he was the one left in ruins, grasping at nothing but empty regret. A hollow laugh escaped him, bitter and self-mocking. How had he been so blind? He had thrown her away for something fleeting, something that had never even been real. And now, standing in the wreckage of his own choices, he understood something horrifying. He would never recover from this. Not truly. He could rebuild his wealth, salvage his reputation. But this loss would haunt him in a way nothing else ever could. He had once thought she was weak, desperate for his love. But in the end, she was the one who walked away without a single trace of regret. The murmurs around him grew louder, the scandals spreading like wildfire. People whispered about his downfall, about how poetic it was. He clenched his fists, willing himself to block them out, but it was impossible. He wasn't the star of the evening anymore. He was the cautionary tale, the man who had everything and let it slip through his fingers. And she was the triumphant one, the woman who had risen from the ashes he had left her in. As SML's arm wrapped around her protectively, a fresh wave of pain crashed over him. That should have been him. Someone called his name, but he barely heard them. His vision blurred. Not from tears, but from the sheer weight of what he had done to himself. His downfall wasn't the result of bad luck. It wasn't a twist of fate. It was his own doing, a consequence of his own arrogance. He had made this bed, and now he was drowning in it. No apology could fix this. No desperate plea could bring her back. He had not only lost her love, he had lost her respect. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else. He had become nothing to her. The crowd slowly moved on, shifting their attention elsewhere. Just minutes ago, he had been the center of their world. Now, he was forgotten, discarded just as he had once discarded her. He let out a shaky breath, his chest tight with something he couldn't name. Was this what she had felt all those years ago when he had walked away? That unbearable sense of abandonment, the crushing weight of knowing you meant nothing to the person you once gave your heart to? The thought made him sick. He had been cruel to her. He had been heartless. And now, karma had found him. A waiter approached, clearing away the untouched champagne from the table beside him. "Sir, would you like another drink?" The words barely registered. What was the point? No amount of alcohol could drown out the suffocating emptiness clawing at his chest. He shook his head numbly, barely able to form words. What he wanted wasn't something that could be served on a silver tray. He wanted time to rewind. He wanted to wake up and find that this was just a terrible nightmare. But it wasn't. This was his reality now. A life without her. A life filled with regret. He turned toward the exit, his steps slow, heavy. The night had been a spectacle, but now it was over. The woman he had once taken for granted had destroyed him without lifting a finger. And the worst part, she hadn't even needed revenge. The universe had taken care of that for her. All she had to do was stand there, watch, and let him crumble under the weight of his own mistakes. He had spent years thinking he was untouchable, but tonight he had learned the truth. He was just another man who had lost the best thing he ever had. As he stepped outside, the cool night air hit him like a slap. The city lights stretched endlessly before him, but they felt dimmer somehow, less alive. He had built this world, climbed to the top. But what was the point if he had no one to share it with? His phone buzzed in his pocket, a call from someone he no longer cared about. He let it ring. There was no fixing this, no redemption. He was alone now, just as she had once been. The difference was she had survived, and he would spend the rest of his life haunted by what he lost. The streets were alive with laughter, music, and the hum of people enjoying their lives. But for him, the world had lost all color. Every sound felt distant. Every light dimmed. His mind kept replaying the moment she walked away. Her heels clicking against the marble floor, the soft rustle of her dress as she stepped into another man's arms. He clenched his jaw, his fists tightening at his sides. He had always thought she belonged to him, that no matter what, she would always be his to return to. But tonight had proven one brutal truth. She had moved on. His phone buzzed again, but he ignored it. No one could help him now. He wanted to scream, to break something, to rewind time and rewrite the past. But reality was cruel. There were no second chances. He thought back to the nights he had spent with her, the way she used to look at him with those hopeful eyes, filled with love. She had adored him once, and he had destroyed that love with his arrogance. He had convinced himself she would always wait, but she hadn't. She had given up on him the way he had once given up on her. A car pulled up to the curb, and he watched as she stepped inside. SML beside her. The door closed, sealing them away from him forever. He wanted to rush forward, to call her name, to beg her to stay. But what right did he have? He had chosen another woman over her. He had walked away first, and she had every right to do the same now. The car's taillights faded into the distance, taking her further away with every second. A lump formed in his throat. This was it, the final goodbye. He never saw it coming. His body felt heavy as he took slow steps down the street, his mind numb. He had spent years building his empire, making himself untouchable, thinking love was something he could control, something he could push away and retrieve when it suited him. But love didn't work that way. It wasn't a business deal, a contract he could renegotiate when he changed his mind. It was fragile, fleeting, and once lost, impossible to reclaim. He had gambled with the one person who had ever loved him unconditionally, and he had lost everything. The realization hit him like a death sentence. He reached the park where they had once walked together, where she had once told him she loved him for the first time. He had barely reacted then, brushing it off with a smirk, taking her heart for granted. Now, standing in the same place years later, all he could hear was the echo of her words, haunting him. His chest ached, the weight of his mistakes pressing down on him like a crushing force. He sank onto a bench, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. What had he done? How had he let this happen? Somewhere in the distance, a couple laughed, lost in their own world. It was the kind of happiness he had once had without even realizing it. He remembered the way she used to laugh, the way her eyes would light up when she talked about the future. A future that had once included him. Now, that same future belonged to someone else. He had watched her walk away with another man, and this time, there was no coming back. He could chase wealth, power, women, but none of it would ever replace her. None of it would ever heal the wound she left behind. He pulled out his phone, his fingers hovering over her name. Would she answer if he called? Would she even care? He knew the answer before he could even finish the thought. She was done with him, truly done, and she deserved to be. He had done nothing to deserve her forgiveness, nothing to earn a place in her life again. Still, the desperation clawed at him, the need to hear her voice one last time. He typed out a message. "I'm sorry. I was a fool. Please." His finger hovered over the send button, but then he stopped. What was the point? He deleted the message. There were no words that could fix what he had broken. No amount of apologies would erase the years of pain he had caused her. She was better off without him, and deep down, he knew it. He had always been selfish, but this was the first time he truly understood what it meant to lose. Not just something, but someone irreplaceable. He let out a long breath, his heart a heavy weight in his chest. He had spent so long thinking he was the winner, but tonight he had never felt more like a loser. As he sat in the dark, alone in the city he had once ruled, he wondered what would become of him now. He could rebuild his fortune, regain his influence, but what was the point if he had no one to share it with? The one person who had ever truly mattered had walked away, and he had let her, not just tonight, but years ago, when he made the worst decision of his life. And now it was too late. He could chase after her, but what would that change? Nothing. She was gone, and she wasn't coming back. The night stretched on, endless and unforgiving. The world continued to move, but for him, time had stopped. Every breath felt heavier, every step more difficult. He had once thought regret was something only weak men suffered from, but tonight he realized something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Regret wasn't weakness. It was the heaviest burden a man could carry, and he would carry it forever, because no matter what he did, no matter how many years passed, he would always remember this night. The night he lost her. The night he lost himself. The city was still awake, but he felt like the only soul in the world. He walked without direction, his mind replaying the moment the screen lit up, the gasps, the betrayal. But worst of all, the way she looked at him. Not with anger, not with hate, just indifference. That was what broke him the most. If she had screamed at him, cursed him, even slapped him, it would have meant she still felt something. But she had nothing left for him. No love, No hate, just nothing. And that emptiness swallowed him whole, dragging him into a void. The memories came crashing in, relentless and cruel, the way she used to wait for him. Her patience endless, her love unwavering. How many times had she stood in the rain, waiting for him to show up? How many times had she forgiven him, believing he would change? And how had he repaid her? By tossing her aside, thinking she would always be there. But now, it was him standing in the rain, alone, waiting for something. Anything to bring her back. But there was no bringing back what was already gone. She had given up on him, just like he had on her. His footsteps echoed through empty streets, each step heavier than the last. It was funny, in a twisted, painful way. He had thought he was invincible, untouchable, that he could have it all. But what did he have now? A ruined reputation, a fiancé who never loved him, a love he had thrown away. The empire he built felt like dust in his hands, slipping through his fingers with every second that passed. He had spent years chasing power, but tonight he realized what good was power when you had no one left to share it with. A bar stood open at the corner, neon lights flickering in the darkness. He stepped inside, needing something, anything to numb the ache in his chest. He ordered a drink, but even as the liquid burned down his throat, it did nothing to drown the memories. He saw her everywhere, in the reflection of the glass, in the way the bartender smiled at a stranger, in the soft hum of a song playing in the background. He closed his eyes, gripping the counter. The worst part of heartbreak wasn't the moment they left. It was the slow, agonizing realization that they were never coming back. The bartender placed another drink in front of him, but he pushed it away. Numbing the pain wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't bring her back. It wouldn't erase what had happened. He had to live with this. Live with the knowledge that he had been given something rare, something pure, and he had thrown it away. He had called her nothing once, but tonight she was everything, and he was the one left with nothing. He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. Life had a way of making a man choke on his own arrogance. His phone buzzed again. He didn't have to look to know it wasn't her. She wouldn't call, wouldn't text, wouldn't even glance in his direction if they crossed paths again. And why should she? She had given him everything, and he had taken it for granted. Now another man was by her side, holding her hand, whispering in her ear, things that should have been his to say. He shut his eyes, the image cutting deeper than any knife. It wasn't just losing her that broke him. It was knowing she had found happiness without him, and he had no one to blame but himself. A cold wind rushed past as he stepped out of the bar, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold and silver. He was tired, so tired, but no amount of exhaustion could dull the weight in his chest. He had seen men lose fortunes, businesses crumble, reputations shatter. But nothing, not even the worst financial ruin, compared to this. Money could be rebuilt. Empires could rise again. But love, once lost, it never returned the same. He had been a fool, thinking he could discard her and pick her back up when it suited him. But life didn't work that way. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the air. He inhaled deeply, but the moment he exhaled, regret filled the empty space again. He had once believed he could have it all. But the truth was, you only ever got one great love in a lifetime. And he had lost his. He would see her again, maybe in another city, maybe in another life. But it wouldn't be the same. She wouldn't look at him with love. She wouldn't reach for him. And the man standing beside her wouldn't be him. It would never be him again. The night stretched on, endless and merciless. He thought about calling her one last time, just to hear her voice. But he knew it would be a mistake. She had moved on. And he had to live with the consequences of his choices. No amount of regret, no amount of pain, would change what had been done. He had gambled with her heart, and he had lost. And unlike business, there were no second chances in love. He took one last drag of his cigarette before tossing it away, watching the embers die. Just like everything between them had died, he turned away from the city lights, stepping into the darkness. He had spent his life believing he was untouchable, that love was a game he could control. But tonight, he had learned the hardest lesson of all: some mistakes could never be undone. And some losses could never be recovered. He would wake up tomorrow, go on with his life, pretend he was fine. But deep down, he knew the truth. He would never be the same again. Because the moment she walked away, she took a part of him with her, and he would never get it back.